The best monitor size and resolution is 27 inches at 1440p. Here's why. For most people, it's the sweet spot to comfortably game or get work done. And most importantly, it will offer you the best experience while keeping costs reasonable. Bigger sizes tend to cost significantly more and smaller ones are way too small in my opinion. 1440p monitors are noticeably sharper than 1080p and they are relatively affordable, so it's a big and worthy upgrade. On the other hand, I believe most people won't need 4K because of two reasons. First, when gaming, the difference between 1440p and 4K isn't that noticeable. And second, running modern games at 4K will significantly lower your frame rates, so it's probably not worth the trade-off for most of you. I mean, if you have an RTX 3090, then go for it, but if you are broke just like me, then avoid 4K. Having said that, 4K is obviously sharper and it's definitely nice to have if you are an
unlimited budget gamer
or a creative professional that needs it for work. Then it's definitely worth considering. Size and resolution aside, there's panel type, color accuracy, refresh rate, response time, G-Sync, Freesync, HDR, ports. By the way, ports are more important than you might think. And not every feature is what it seems like at first glance. I'll use this BenQ monitor as an example to go over the spec list and tell you which features actually matter and which ones are over-optimistic marketing materials. By the way, BenQ did send me this monitor to feature in a video, but I am free to say whatever I want about it. I almost dropped it. Here's a quick panel type summary. This monitor is targeted towards content creators that do color-sensitive work, so it has a 27-inch 4K IPS panel. It also has 95% DCI-P3, 100% sRGB, and Rec 709 color space coverage, in addition to a factory color calibration report, is Calman verified, Pantone validated, and has a bunch of other pro features. This basically means that the colors are nice and accurate.
Nice.
But I guess most of you are more interested in gaming. In that case, panel type and color accuracy shouldn't be as high of a priority as high refresh rate, but it is nice to have good and accurate colors. By the way, if you're liking this video, please consider subscribing. The BenQ PD2725U, oh my god, they should come out with better names. This isn't a gaming monitor, so it has a 60Hz panel with 5 millisecond response times. For context, most displays are 60Hz, but higher refresh rate displays are becoming more and more mainstream for gaming, and they are getting much cheaper. As shown in this video by Linus Tech Tips, a higher refresh rate does give a competitive advantage. Just keep in mind that there will be diminishing returns as you go from 60 to 144 to 240Hz and beyond.
Going from 60 to 144 is like night and day for me, obviously, right? But 144 to 240.
I think that a 144Hz monitor with 1 millisecond response times will be the best option for most of you. It's a big step up from 60Hz and they are relatively affordable. But most cheaper monitors will have VA or TN panels. If you want high refresh rate and a color accurate IPS panel, it's going to get quite more expensive. By the way, G-Sync and Freesync will also improve your gaming experience by eliminating screen tearing and minimizing display stutter and input lag, so keep it in mind. What you also need to keep in mind is what makes an HDR monitor HDR. A lot of cheaper monitors claim to be HDR10. It's frequently used to advertise monitors these days, but it can be very misleading. An HDR10 monitor only means that you can play HDR content and you can turn on HDR in Windows settings. But the peak brightness of the monitor isn't anywhere bright enough to deliver a good HDR experience, so it's more like HDR rent. If you want a proper HDR experience, you'll have to look for monitors with Besa Display HDR certification and pay the premium. Starting with Display HDR 400 and going all the way up to 1400, a monitor must meet certain requirements to be considered Besa Display HDR certified. For example, the peak brightness of this monitor is 400 nits and it qualifies for Besa Display HDR 400 certification. The HDR image looks quite nice on this display, but with Display HDR 400, the lowest tier of Besa Display HDR certifications, it's far from perfect. I often found highlights to be blown out and lose detail, which a Display HDR 1000 or 1400 certified monitor won't suffer from, and they will deliver a much better HDR, in addition to a much higher peak brightness. I personally don't think HDR itself is a must-have for most of you, but a higher maximum brightness does make a significant difference. So if you can afford it, it's a really nice feature to have. Lights on. Good. Also, very important, keep in mind what HDMI and DisplayPort version the monitor and your devices have. Older versions may not support high resolutions at high refresh rates because of their limited maximum bandwidth. For example, HDMI 1.4 maxes out at 4K 30Hz or 1440p at 85Hz. In this case, the BenQ monitor has HDMI 2.0 and DisplayPort 1.4 inputs to run it at 4K 60Hz. But make sure your source devices also have them. Here's a quick chart with all the information. This shouldn't be a problem in most cases, but sometimes it can be a huge oversight. For example, I know someone, me, who got a 4K monitor but his laptop only had an HDMI 1.4 output, so he wasn't able to run the monitor at 4K 60Hz using the HDMI port. Luckily, that laptop had two Thunderbolt 3 ports, which have a much higher bandwidth and can be used as a display output. Speaking of Thunderbolt, it's one of the features this BenQ monitor has, and it's a very premium and expensive feature, but it's definitely the best and most convenient port as it can be adapted to almost anything and you can use a single cable for multiple purposes. For example, here you can use a single Thunderbolt cable to connect a laptop or PC and transfer audio, video and data along with 65 watts of power delivery with just one cable. Here are some other useful things you might want on your monitor. An adjustable stand, a VESA wall mount, a USB hub with a KVM switch, a matte anti-glare panel, and you might also want to learn from Skillshare, the sponsor of this video. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for beginners or pros that want to explore new skills or deepen existing passions. I personally always aspire to be better, so learning from Skillshare classes is one of my favorite things to do. There are multiple class topics for you to choose from, and by multiple I mean basically almost anything for all skill levels, including YouTube success classes to learn how to become a successful YouTuber, or video editing classes to learn how to use tools like Adobe Premiere Pro. In my case, I've been taking the Adobe Photoshop CC Essential Training course class recently because I never got to fully learn all the tools available in Photoshop, and I want to learn to create whatever I want with it, especially YouTube thumbnails. All of the classes are curated specifically for learning, so there are no ads and they are always launching new premium classes. The first 1000 of my subscribers to click the link in the description will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare so you can start exploring your creativity today. And that's pretty much it. Subscribe and I will see you in the next video.